Hi, friend. My name is Bunny, and today I'm going to be talking about the origins of Israel-Palestine, what it is that happened on October 7th of 2023, and what has transpired since then. So in the description of this video, I will include a couple of vocabulary words and their definition because I will be using them a lot during this video, and in case anybody is unfamiliar with what they mean, well, there you go. And alright, so this really originates to the early 1900s. The region along the eastern Mediterranean that we now know to be Israel-Palestine was under Ottoman Empire control. In this region, we had Muslims, Jews, and Christians living in harmony, and they were beginning to identify as Palestinians, which was a growing national identity. During the same time, we had Jews in Europe joining a movement called Zionism, which claimed Judaism was not only a religion but also a nationality that deserved a nation. And many saw their historic homeland in the Middle East to be their best hope in establishing this nation. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and then we had the British and the French empires carving up the Middle East, and the British ended up taking control of this land and ended up calling it the British Mandate for Palestine. So we had in the first decades of the 20th century a huge migration of European Jews moving to British Palestine, which just furthermore caused tensions between the Jews and the Arabs to grow within this land. So after the horror of the Holocaust, we of course had an even bigger influx of migration into the land. And then we had the British realizing that they were no longer in control of the violence that was happening in the British Mandate for Palestine. So they ended up saying, you know what, let's make it somebody else's problem. And they ended up passing it to the newly formed United Nations. And we had the UN in 1947 propose a plan to divide Palestine into two states, known as the Resolution 181. So we would have one state for the Jews, which would be named Israel, and we would have another state for the Arabs, which would be named Palestine. And then we would have an international zone in the city of Jerusalem, where we have Jews, Muslims, and Christians all having holy sites. So this basically was Britain's plan to kind of get rid of the problem and then give the Jews a state and establish Palestine independence from Britain because they realized that they couldn't control the violence that they had created. So we had the Jews accept the plan and declared independence as Israel, and the Arabs rejected the plan, for they saw this plan to be just another colonizer coming in and doing whatever they want with their land. And, well, obviously, that did not seem fair to them. So, although this was not accepted by them, the British did withdraw and basically left them to figure it out themselves. And so many of the Arab states declared war on Israel as soon as Britain left. And in 1948 through 1949, we had a war going on in the effort to establish a unified Arab Palestine, where all of British Palestine was. So Israel ended up winning the war, and in the process, they land grabbed past the UN proposal and took western half of Jerusalem and much of the land that was Palestine, which in result, we had the expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians from their homes and created a massive refugee population. At the end of the war, Israel controlled all the territory except Gaza, for which it was under Egyptian control, and they also were not in control of the West Bank, which it was controlled by Jordan. So in 1960, we had the PLO formed, which is the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which sought for a Palestinian state and to fight against Israel under any means necessary. So at the same time, we had illegal settlements start rising up in the West Bank and Gaza. We had Israelis moving into Palestinian territory, followed by the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Forces, essentially their military, and they began moving into Palestinian land, claiming it for Israel for religious reasons or because the housing here is a lot cheaper. This is all illegal, and yet it is still happening. We have them coming in, followed by the IDF, and forcefully removing them from their home. And if they do not leave, they are met with violence and even loss of life. So then in 1967, we had Israel and the neighboring Arab states fight what was known as the 6 Days War, which when it ended, Israel seized the Golan Heights from Syria, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and both the Gaza Strip and Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. When this happened, it made Israel the occupier of all of Palestinian territory, including Jerusalem and its holy sites. So then, in 1973, we have Israel be attacked during the Jewish holiday of, and my apologies if I mispronounce, Yom Kippur, in which Egypt and Syria launched an attack in hopes of regaining their lost territory. So this resulted into what was known as the Yom Kippur War or October War. So following a series of fire exchange and peace negotiations, we had in 1978, Israel and Egypt signed the Camp David Accords, which resulted in a peace treaty between Egypt and Israel in 1979, and which ended up in Israel giving the Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt. Although the Sinai Peninsula was given back, we had Israel still occupying the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and Gaza, which is when the conflict became the Israel-Palestinian struggle. So from 1987 through 1993, the Palestinian frustration exploded into what was known as the Intifada, which is the Arabic word for uprising. It essentially started off with protests and boycotts, but ended up in violence. And Israel ended up responding with, of course, heavy force. And during this time also, in 1987, we have a group of Palestinians in Gaza who viewed the current PLO, which is the Palestinian Liberation Organization, to be too compromise-minded. And they ended up creating what is known to be as Hamas, a resistance group dedicated to Israelis' destruction. In 1993, we had leaders of both sides sign the Oslo Accords, which allowed Palestinians a little bit of freedom to govern themselves in certain areas in the West Bank and Gaza. Then in the summer of 2000, U.S. President Bill Clinton invited Israel and Palestinian and the PLO to come to the United States with hopes of a resolution. After weeks of negotiations, nothing ended up happening in agreement, which just ended up resulting in more violence and Palestinians rising up in a second intifada, which was much more violent and lasting more than 4 years. So, with about 1,000 Israelis and 3,200 Palestinians martyred, the second intifada caused Israel politics to shift far right. Then we had, in 2006, elections in Palestinian territory resulted in Hamas gaining power of the Gaza Strip. The political party then split from the then current Palestinian Authority Parliament elections at the time majority party known as Fatah, and which resulted in a short civil war, but ultimately dividing Gaza from the West Bank. So in 2007, we have Hamas taking over of the Gaza Strip a year after winning the Palestinian Authority elections. Hamas, as a reminder, was founded in the late 1980s and is a political and militant party, and their goal is to liberate all of Palestine and return those exiled from the land in Israel's founding in 1948. So, following this win, the Zionist regime imposed a land, air, and sea blockade on Gaza, which is often referred as the world's largest open-air prison, for essentially holds hostage the 2 million people who live within the Gaza Strip. It doesn't let anybody come in, and it doesn't let anybody come out. The IDF has made it its goal to make human life extremely difficult within the Gaza Strip. They constantly bomb infrastructure, they ban goods, they deny travel for life-saving surgeries, they do not allow people to receive medical attention, there is a shortage in medication, there is a shortage on food, there is extreme rules towards what it is that they can do, their electricity usage, they incarcerate anybody with outrageous fines, penalties, and it's all with outrageous laws that are just essentially bottom line racist and are created to make Palestinian life unbearable. And just to kind of talk about that really quick, I remember reading this. It was an article along with an interview, and it was a mother, and she was expressing about how there was heavy bombardment around the neighborhood, and she had her daughter who had just had her leg amputated, and the child's leg was rotting, and anytime that they tried to leave the home to go to the hospital to try and get care or medication or anything, they were met with fire from Israeli tanks. And there's countless stories that are like that, and I remember just thinking, like, it's just so, it just leaves you lost for words towards what it is that is happening to the Palestinian people. It is beyond inhumane, and yeah, let's continue. So then we have, following in 2008, Israel attacked Gaza in what was known as Operation Caslet, which claimed to pinpoint Hamas targets, but after 22 days, on January 18, 2009, Operation Caslet ended. So even though that they were claiming to be strictly targeting Hamas targets, there was extremely high civilian casualties. So since 2008, there has been numerous times where we see the loss of Palestinian life due to these attacks, which include massacres, retaliation of peaceful protests, retaliation of violence erupted from forceful displacement, and eviction of Palestinian families from their property. For example, in 2014, we had 2,251 Palestinians martyred. In 2018, we had tens of thousands of Palestinians marching towards the boundary with Israel every Friday for nearly 2 years, in what was mainly a peaceful protest, because take in mind, the only thing that they can really even throw is rocks. The IDF has tanks, it has missiles, it has guns, it has everything, and these are children that are resisting an occupation using rocks. I just really want that to be highlighted. So while we had these protests going on, of course they were met with a lot of violence, which resulted in 183 of them being martyred and 6,000 of them being wounded, which has also been shown that the IDF usually would shoot protesters in the legs, in the ankle, and in the foot with the hopes of handicapping them in order to essentially make them less of a target, as if and you can say. So then in 2021 we have 248 killed and 1,900 wounded, 72,000 displaced. I did make a video about this, and it makes me incredibly saddened that this is where this has led. And I just really hope that this video is bringing a lot of light to the Palestinian struggle and is informing you of things that you might have not known. So we also have Israeli officials openly calling for the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians and destruction of their land with the goal of expansion and settlements. So we have since we have had countless occurrences of the IDF attacking places of worship, destroying and terrorizing holy sites, smashing homes, displacing families, burning cars, burning olive tree fields, illegal detainment, unjust and outrageous laws set with equally as outrageous consequences, preventing access to medical care, preventing access to food, to water, to clean water, to fuel, to defend their own property. We have countless and countless occurrences of the Israeli government, the IDF, and Israelis themselves being racist and using violence and displacement towards the Palestinian people. And I also wanted to highlight one story that always stuck with me. And of course, all of these links are going to be in the description of the video so you can see for yourself. There was an article that I read that in 2005, an Israeli army officer who fired the entire magazine round of his automatic rifle into a 13 Palestinian little girl, which was a total of 17 bullets, and then said he would have, and I quote, done the same even if she had been 3 years old, end quote, was acquitted on all charges by a military court. The military court cleared the officer of illegal use of his weapon and of conduct unbecoming of an officer, and also excused of perverting the course of justice by asking soldiers under his command to alter their accounts of the incident. There is countless stories like this that are seen time and time again being done by the IDF, and no consequences happen to any of these soldiers, and the cycle has not ended, unfortunately. There is a lot more of incidences that I did not go over. Please go online, look up Palestine, and inform yourself. And if there's anything that maybe you would want me to look into, please comment on the comments below. But now I want to talk about what it is that happened on October 7th of 2023. Today is January 18th, 2024. That is the date that I am recording this video. So on October 7th, Hamas fighters blew through Israel's high-tech fence and attacked several of the surrounding military bases and then moved to Israeli communities near the border, also including attacking festival goers of a concert that was happening at the time called Nova. There was reported at least 1,200 Israelis killed and dozens were captured and taken into Gaza to be used in a prisoner swap. Many of those dead were deemed civilians under international law, and children were also among those killed. There has been a lot of misinformation as to what happened on this day, which has repeatedly been debunked, and some of those things would be such as the alleged rapes, the beheading of babies, the alleged burning of babies in ovens, and also, as of recently, Israeli outlets have also reported that a lot of the casualties that happened at the Nova concert were in fact due to the IDF's negligence and failure to act on a potential security threat. It is reported that the IDF was essentially trigger happy and was just causing all this destruction on the ground. Well, they didn't know who was Hamas, and they didn't know who were innocent Israeli civilians, and they ended up killing a large number of their own people and then tried to blame it on Hamas. The fact that there is Israeli outlets that are now talking about this, and there is a lawsuit that is currently being processed towards the Israeli government for their negligence, speaks volumes. After this attack, we had the Israel Defense Minister ordered fuel, electricity, and water to be cut from Gaza. Since then, Israel has bombed every single hospital. They have bombed ambulances, refugee camps, places of worship, holy sites, civilian neighborhoods, infrastructure, government buildings, universities, schools, the beach, agriculture, bakeries, the list goes on. There has been exchanges of hostages and prisoners, only for these Palestinian prisoners to be illegally detained soon after the exchange. Reason why October 7th happened was with the goal of exchanging Palestinian prisoners illegally detained by Israel and essentially holding hostage Israeli civilians and swapping these hostages and prisoners. When these exchanges were documented, there was a repeating pattern that was shown. A lot of these people that were being released by the Israeli government were heavily traumatized, physically heavily abused, mentally abused. A lot of the people came out of detainment with disabilities, with a lot of mental health issues, with a lot of physical control issues. A lot of these children, men and women, describe being raped, beaten, tortured, humiliated, and it's unbelievable to see the number of children that have come out of Israeli prisons. Take in mind, a lot of the Gazan population, the 2 million people, most of them are children 10 years and under. And the Israeli forces detain these children no matter their age. There are several videos of children as small as would be like 6 being detained and taken away in tanks. We also have the IDF using illegal white phosphorus bombs in Gaza and Lebanon, which is illegal in accordance to the Geneva Conventions. These white phosphorus bombs burn at 800 Celsius, which converted to Fahrenheit is the equivalent of 1,472 Fahrenheit. They burn skin to the bone, leaving people unrecognizable and charred. There is countless of horror stories that have come out of Gaza, where we have doctors describing the horrors of the injuries that these children, men and women are facing, and how people are being left disfigured, completely burned, and there is no access to any kind of painkiller, any kind of morphine. There we have amputations forced to be conducted without anesthesia. We have, according to statistics, there is an average of 10 children per day losing one or both of their legs. We have bombardment and forced immediate evacuations of hospitals, which I just want y'all to really think about. A hospital cannot evacuate in a couple of hours. We have critical patients. We have intensive care unit patients. We have patients who have no limbs, who have lost a limb, who are unresponsive, and the list goes on. And we have the IDF bombing and destroying every single hospital. And as of January 2017, there is only one remaining functioning hospital in Gaza. For example, one of the immediate forced evacuations that really stuck with me was the forced removal of doctors and staff from the Al-Nazar hospital, in which doctors and staff removed from the hospital at gunpoint and forced to leave premature babies that were in the intensive care unit to die, in which eventually were discovered in their incubators rotting. On December 13th of 2023, we had an Israeli assault on the Sharia Abu Ghazala school in northern Gaza, killed those sheltering execution style. On December 2018 of 2023, bulldozers crushed and buried Palestinians alive at Gamal Adwan Hospital during an Israeli raid. We have in Gaza, there is sewage on the streets. There is obviously no plumbing. There is rain. These people have no shelter. They have no tents. They have nothing to protect themselves with from the natural elements. There is rotting, trapped bodies under the rubble. We have people who cannot move, who are slowly passing away, and the list goes on. We have also various instances of exhuming bodies from cemeteries, such as a recent one that happened yesterday on January 17th of 2024. We have the IDF destroying graves, tiles, barriers, stones from cemeteries such as the Khan Yunis one, the Ali Cemetery, which in which they also took away more than 10 bodies, and then the Al-Turki Cemetery, in which they took 8 bodies. The IDF has killed Palestinians execution style by the masses, burned them alive, shot at them out of pure enjoyment, doesn't let them receive aid without the possibility of being shot at and losing their life, can't even cross the street, can't receive aid, food, or water, can't travel in cars. They are simply being executed in public for simply existing. And then we have the Yemeni armed forces announcing that they are fulfilling their obligations under Article 1 of the Convention on the Prevention of Genocide. They say that the blockade of Israeli-bound ships in the Red Sea will end when the ongoing genocide ends, which in turn has resulted in the U.S. bombing and retaliating against Yemen, which is the Arab world's poorest country. The U.S. has also designated the Houthi rebels as a specially designated terrorist group, which are the people who are currently blockading these Israeli ships in the Red Sea. So then we also have South Africa accusing Israel of committing genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza and demanding the United Nations International Court of Justice to order Israel to halt its operations there. Since October 7th, Israel has deployed 6,000 bombs per week, and at least 200 times has deployed 2,000-pound bombs, which the destruction that they do is unimaginable, incomprehensible, and is constantly falling on Gazan innocent civilians. There has been an ongoing war against journalists, by which we have the IDF killing their family members, killing them, which as of January 18th, as of today, 2024, there has reportedly been 126 journalists having been killed. As of January 17th, 2024, there is reportedly only one remaining functioning hospital, which is now under attack. There are reportedly only 6 functioning ambulances, and the idea has ran with this lie of Hamas being stationed under hospitals or schools, therefore justifying the bombardment and the killing of innocent civilians. But countless times we have seen that the evidence that they provide is fake, is staged, is blatantly catering towards the Western world. People are told to flee to X location only to be killed there. People are told that if they follow X rules, they will be safe, only to be killed. People are helped for photo ops, only to be executed a little bit after. We have people killed while waving white handkerchiefs. We have people killed while they're walking with their children. We have people killed while they are walking with their hands up. List goes on and on. As of January 17, we have Israel's Minister of National Security confirming that his plan is for the IDF to expel all Palestinians from Gaza. We are on day 104 of this ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people. Please do not let these numbers numb you. Please let them radicalize you. Please let this change you. As of January 17, we have 374 healthcare workers killed, 152 United Nations staff members killed, more than 1,800 multi-generational families having been wiped out with no remaining survivors. As of January 18, 2024, the death toll has reached 24,620, including 10,400 children among those martyred. At least 61,830 people have been wounded, and over 6,000 are still missing or believed to be buried under the rubble. Some things that we can do is to amplify Palestinian life as both as their happiness and their sorrow. Social media has been a crucial, important key part in the beginning of all of this. We have seen how the Western media has complete control of everything, how it spews this Israeli propaganda, how it has not had any coverage of the pro-Palestinian protests, rallies, movements. It does not go hand with the majority census in America, which is that more and more Americans are here to demand a ceasefire. So, as I mentioned, some things that you can do is amplify Palestinian life by sharing their stories, their posts. Something that I make sure to do is just save. If you save somebody's post on whether it be X or Instagram, it helps boost the algorithm. Right now, these social media sites are hushing a lot of this information. So therefore, by doing these things, we in turn help the algorithm bring this information towards the masses. We can boycott corporations that are actively supporting Israel's ongoing genocide, such as McDonald's, Starbucks, Disney, KFC. The list goes on. As well, I will include a list of this in the description of this video. Donate to any credible organizations. 2 points that I wanted to say before I leave. I think it's really important to not forget who the real enemy is in all of this. I have seen a lot of fights over like Starbucks and McDonald's and things like that. And all of that is valid and amplify that. But at the end, do not let them divide us more than what it is we are. I feel that people can only meet you where it is that they are in their own path, and none of us can judge them for being there. And if they do not see the reality of this, do not waste your breath. Continue speaking up, continue planting the seed, and eventually the seed will grow. The Palestinian struggle for freedom is connected to struggles all around the world because oppressors like Israel are not only upholding oppression against one population, it's always interconnected to oppressing many more marginalized communities. I beg y'all to please make this your problem, not look away, demand for a ceasefire, participate in protests, be careful, cover your faces, and we got this. We got this. As always, don't forget that somebody loves you, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.